Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Gorgeous day out there as usual. Lovely, nice drive May out we're having. We can only pray that it's actually going to clear up some stage. I suppose the whole idea today is just we'll just run through a few bits. If anyone has any questions there, you can just throw them into the comment section, and we'll try and just rattle on and get through as much as we can. Right. Let me get rid of this. There, very good. Okay, I suppose a couple of things there. Just to start with, we'll just run through a little bit of water safety. Traveling alone, a lot of people would ask, it all depends on your skill level. It depends on your abilities. It depends on your history. Some people could be kayaking since they were born. They, chucked into the water a year dot. Like those people, they're all going to have an inherent set of skills. And what I hope is that you're going to take a bit out of this today, that you'll be able to tune in and start actually getting yourselves on the same train of thought when you are going anywhere, especially on the water. Like the main thing to remember is that it is not our element. It's the minute you're out there, you're on borrowed time. If anything goes wrong, it's not very forgiving. I suppose my own background, I'm running Funky Town down here. I'm nearly 11 years. So 11 season. I'm in the RNLI down in Crosshaven for the last 10, 11 years as well. Kayak instructor, paddleboard instructor, powerboat instructor. Anything to do with salt water, really, I stuck my nose into. So the whole traveling alone, yes, if you have the skills for it, by all means, but it's the same as everything else. Like, it's nearly more enjoyable when there's a friend involved, or that was the whole idea with the Onabui group, which is fantastic. You can see how much it's grown, and you can see how much everybody wants to, share it with each other. But the main thing is that we just do it in the right mindset. So the weather and the tides. If you're going out with a group, no matter what size the group is, you check the weather, you check the tides. Don't rely on someone else. Just because Kevin might turn around to me and say, "Oh, the tide is fully in there at 4 o'clock," and we're going to try and get back up to somewhere, and suddenly it's like the tide is actually fully out. Oh, I read the wrong date, or I looked up the wrong chart. Don't rely on anyone else. And especially when it's, ultimately you go onto the water yourself, 10 fingers, 10 toes, you want to come off the water with 10 fingers and 10 toes. So it's down to you check. Your equipment, very important. Check your equipment. Nobody laughing. The main thing, guys, there's lots of kayaks there. Everybody is sharing. You might get a kayak off someone and you could just hop into it and drive away. Suddenly you start to feel, Jesus, this thing feels a little bit uncomfortable, and suddenly you feel a little bit unbalanced, and then you realize, I didn't check the bungs, I didn't check the hatches, I didn't check the hull. There could be a little hole in it that's leaving in water. Like, the whole principle of a kayak is that it floats and it keeps water out. When you start putting water into it, it starts to get a lot more unsteady. One of the huge things for me, and it's an absolute killer, everybody knows, everybody's got some sort of a bad back at some time in their life. If you have a seat that's crap, it'll absolutely annihilate you. No matter how, you could be going 50 meters, 100 meters, you could go 100 miles. Make sure you always have good lumbar support. So that means that right at the base of your spine, that your seat is nicely curved around you, and it gives you good tight support. Lovely spelling out of me there. Bungs, drain holes, guys. Please remove your bungs when you get onto the water. Okay. With the environment that we're in here, and most of the trips that you're going to go on, if you have the plugs in the drain holes, if your kayak takes on water, it can be only leaning to the side to grab something or moving. You can have 10 liters of water into your kayak very quickly. 10 liters of water is 10 kilos. That'll change the whole dynamic of your kayak, and you'll start to feel it. You'll start to feel it in your hips. You'll start to feel, oh, my back feels a little weird. You'll start to feel that the kayak wants to slip out from underneath you. Any of the water that comes in, the reason that there are drain holes is that it can get back out itself. And that your kayak will be the same weight as halfway through the paddle as it was when you put it onto the water. A big thing with the groups at the moment, guys, is you could be in groups when you don't really know everyone. Okay, so like in our own terms, when we're, so a lot of the stuff that we do, we wouldn't know people's capabilities. We wouldn't know what their history is. We'd be lucky to just start learning names as we're going along. But you get quite good at picking up, and visually as well. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that, okay, if you have a very large person and you're putting them into a very small kayak, then there's going to be issues. You have to make sure that the kayak has enough buoyancy, that it's rated to carry enough kilos. So, like me, for example, I'm quite a big lad. If I went into a kayak that was 100 kilos or 110 kilos, I'd be under pressure, and that's why your kit always needs to be sized appropriately. And a big thing, especially with your group as well, guys, is you need to identify pretty quickly when you're going in excursions what everyone's capabilities are. Identify the people who are weak. So anyone who's new to it, have you done this before? A couple of little probing questions. You don't have to get up on a seat and start announcing it to everyone. Just a couple of nice questions. And generally, on all our trips, and the best practice is that the group only moves as fast as its slowest member. Now, what that means is that your group out in the water is going to be condensed. It's going to be compact. You're going to have more crack. You're going to be able to chat with each other. But if anything goes wrong, you can actually get to someone very quickly. If you're spread out over even 500 meters, it can happen very, very quickly that people can get into trouble. Somebody can fall off. People can get panicky. That everybody has to stay together. That's where we always set the pace. The easiest thing is, if you have someone very weak and slow, put them right up the front, and as they're up the front, you nominate them. You say, okay, right, Johnny, your paddling is, Johnny's just new to us here. Okay, this is his first day. I want everybody to stay behind Johnny. Okay, and what that means, that'll keep everyone compact, everyone together, and everyone safe. Safe is the main thing. Medical issues. It all depends. I'm not like, there's going to be varying degrees of medical skills within the group itself. Some people might have high qualifications, some might have none at all. But it's always good to identify in a group, and I would advise as well going forward, especially because you're going to be doing a lot of miles, guys. You've got a big group, and the onus is on that everybody's minding each other. So if any medical courses come up or anything like that, there's a rec course. There's one of the Carrigaline lads, Dave is a rec trainer. I'd strongly advise that people actually sign up and get a course under their belt. You only know the value of it when you're stuck in a situation that you need it. And especially with the groups and stuff, you'll know that more and more people going out with the group are medically trained, and that if there is an issue, that they can get on top of it. I suppose you always come across. I've had groups down of adults, and they've come down. Any medical issues? oh, well, like I just had surgery on my wrist there yesterday. And you're like, come on, there has to be a level of common sense. But then there's also things like diabetes and stuff like that, where, you have to ask the questions. When have you last eaten? Are you type 1? Are you type 2? Have you last eaten? Have you got a sugary drink with you? Have you got your insulin? Have you got your everything? Like st- stuff like that. If you're going to come across it, there's going to be people who suffer from the group, and it's just best to be aware of them. When you're going on your trips, when you're doing an excursion, assigning a leader. Now, this isn't somebody to go bossing everyone around the place and telling them, you do there, you carry my kayak there, it'll be great, thanks. The whole idea of the leader of the group is that it would be somebody who would have a level of experience that would be higher than everyone else. And that they would be controlling the group. So always with a group, you will have somebody at the front and the back who are experienced. And what they'll do is, as much as people try, it's very hard to throttle a group and to keep them all together. It's a skill in itself. Like the person at the front, they need to be constantly checking over their shoulder and to be looking to say, okay, we're getting a little bit too far ahead. Right, guys, put on the brakes there, 5-minute rest. We'll wait for the peloton to catch up with us, okay? Everybody catches up nice and easy. Before you go, the OMG procedure. This is vital, and it's something that, it's not so nice telling everyone, well, guys, if everything goes completely and utterly to shit and everything goes tits up, this is what we have to do. Okay, but it's great. But what I find is that if you inform people of the worst case scenario, okay, look, guys, if the weather is bad when we get out here and we go around the point, if we're not happy with it, then we're doing a U-turn. The wind is too strong this way, we're not going to go against it. You just need to put in place a couple of procedures and stuff like that so that people are aware of it, and that if you do decide to pull up the handbrake when you're going on a trip or doing anything, that people will be like, oh, that's fine. Look, I was pre-warned about it. That's fine. Look, it's just safety. We'll turn around and we'll come back. Okay, right. Equipment. Need to have, nice to have. In my experience, I think it's all relevant. It's all relevant. It just depends what you're doing and where you're going. Like if you're coming down to Fountainstown and you're going surfing in the waves, you're not going to have everything on this list with you. You might have a dry bag strapped onto the back of the kayak there with a first aid kit, and maybe an energy bar or something like that, or a tow rope. It's like the most important thing though, when you are going in excursions is that you have sufficient amount of equipment that if you do get into trouble, you can get yourself out. And at least if you can't get out of trouble, you can call someone who can get you out of trouble. And that's the main priority when you're out there. Everything you do needs to be trying to minimize the risks, and happy kayaking is making sure that when you go out you come back. Mobile phones, waterproof cases. There's Lifeproof do a very good case. They have them. Most of the new iPhones and stuff, they're waterproof. I don't trust it. I always get a case. I've sunk a few phones in my time. It's best to spend the money and get a good case, something that's maybe rated to 2 or 3 meters, at least. Trying to make phone calls with wet fingers that's a whole different topic altogether. Making sure your phone is sufficiently charged. It's happened to me, I don't know how many times, and it happened to me in one situation where I needed my phone, and I looked at it, and it just died in front of me, and that's great. That's exactly why I bring a phone in a waterproof case with no battery. I didn't make that mistake. VHF. Now to use a VHF, they're a radio. you need to have a VHF license. To have a VHF license, you have to go do a course, all this sort of stuff. In my honest opinion, it's better looking at it than looking for it. You know, like everybody can shout if they're in trouble, and it's better to have something like that in a dry bag, inside in your kit, inside in your the back of your kayak. That if anything did go wrong, and if your phone ran out of battery, that you could pick up the radio. A lot of the problems with the mobile phones as well, guys, is that especially here on the south coast, we've got very high cliffs. The cliffs would have a lot of iron in them. And they're notorious for killing phone signal. Even VHF signal is very hard to get in a lot of places around. When you're tucked in under the cliff, you're pretty much on your own. You know, the VHFs will have line of sight to another boat. So if there's a boat out at sea, they'll be able to pick up your VHF call. Channel 16 is the international channel for distress. Channel 67 is an operating channel. That's one that they would ask you if there was something going on, they'd ask you to swap over to. And then we have channel 12, that'd be port ops. So that'd be a port inside. A lot of the times, if you couldn't get channel 16, you'd be able to pick up channel 12 in the port, and they'd relay it to the Coast Guard. If there is a scenario where you need to use a VHF to call the Coast Guard, don't be under any illusion. That's what they're there for. That's what they're there for. That's what the helicopters are there for. I know it's big bucks when you launch a helicopter, but it's a lot better than somebody dying of hypothermia because they fall and twisted their ankle and couldn't get out or something, you know. A whistle, very basic. It's not too technical, but people can hear it. Always good. A lot of the life jackets come with our orange whistles on them, and it's great to alert attention. Flares. If you start getting into a bit of trucking, and let's say you're into the sea kayaking, you've got an enclosed sea kayak, you're doing a bit of distance, then you'll always have a flare at the ready in a grab bag. Red handheld flares. Generally, you're not going to have the big, huge parachute ones that you have in the boats and stuff, you know. Just appropriate kit for whatever scenario you're in. First aid kit. Very important. It's you know, just as long as you can stop a bleed, or you can put a sling on something, or you can wrap something if you have a break. There's loads of different bits and pieces you can get for them. There's SAM splints. There is there's, you know, the size of the medical kit that you can carry. You could be bringing around a giant box with you all the time. You know, there is overkill in it, but once again, better looking at it than for it. Any medication, if you do have medication, just be very wary that you can't, like, even as a first aider, and I've a fair few courses done, you know, what you can actually give someone is very limited, you know. You can't exactly be, you know, performing open heart surgery out there. Bivy bags. I'm not sure has anyone come across them. Bivy bags, in my opinion, are essential. Now, they're cheap as chips. They might cost you $20, I'd say. What it is it's a big, giant orange plastic bag. Now, if anyone has had hypothermia, it's had the pleasure of it. It is one of the nastiest things ever if you get caught with it. When you're put under a cold shower when you've got hypothermia, it's like somebody's pouring a boiling kettle over your skin. Your skin starts to walk. I had it when I was a kid. I got trapped in a boat that was upside down, and it was absolutely horrible. A bivy bag. If you have somebody and you're out on a trip and they sprain an ankle, yeah, they're in a wetsuit. They might have gone for a swim. Their wetsuit is wet. They might have had breakfast, a small breakfast before they left because they were in a rush out the door. So their blood sugar is low. Their wetsuit is wet. They've twisted their ankle. They're fed up, they're upset, and they can't keep going. And they need a rescue, and they need to get out of there. Now, what will happen to someone like that is they can enter shock very quickly. And what shock is the more that your core temperature starts to drop, that your blood sugar start to drop, you can start to enter shock, which is extremely dangerous. The joy of a bivy bag, anything happens, someone twists their ankle, first thing you do, get out the bivy bag, wrap the person around it, chuck them into it, they start to warm up, they're nice and happy, suddenly they're like, stupid ankle, and you can wait, you can get rescued. Space blanket, it's a dry towel, obviously it's good just to dry someone off. The space blankets are great, they're like the old NASA technology. What you can do is you can put it in underneath someone's wetsuit. You can stuff it in, and it just gives someone another layer. It's like a space foil, or you can wrap somebody around it. Like most of the heat is lost through your head, so if you pull a bivy bag and cover yourself in a space blanket, the more you warm up, the better you are, the better you're able to address the situation. Energy bars, drinks, sunscreen. The energy bars. If you have anyone, as we were just saying, somebody who's got a low blood sugar, or who hasn't eaten a breakfast, the handiest thing is one of the energy bars. It'll get carbohydrates and sugars into them very quickly. They'll start to come around. Sugary drinks, waters are fine, yeah, but always in your dry bag, try to have a sugary drink there. Sunscreen, people can get sunstroke if you're out in the water all day. You don't realize that the water is reflecting up there's a screen coming off, and you can get absolutely sozzled. I've come along some days. I don't know, do I look like Porky the Pig or what? I just glowing pink. It's never good when you're putting on. You have to put on after Sunday or at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Tow rope, the dry bag obviously to keep everything in, and our compass. Everybody knows what the compass is in case we get lost. Tow ropes. Now we're going to go a little further onto the tow ropes. Okay, tow ropes, guys, are essential. An essential bit of kit, and we'll just talk through a few bits of them here. One of the biggest dangers if somebody needs a tow, one of the biggest dangers is that they're already under pressure. There's already something happening that they might have run out of steam. They might be feeling seasick. That's one of the big ones we get. But the big problem is that if you go to tow them, and if you tie your kayak onto their kayak, what that means is if anything goes wrong with them, you can't get out of it. You're now tied onto their kayak. And that guys is extremely dangerous. That is why they have these. You'll see the React one. I have a load of them. I give to my instructors in the summertime. It's a quick release. You'll see down here the yellow one. There's a little red toggle on the front of it. If the person you're towing, suddenly they take a turn for the worse and they end up falling into the water, or they lose their balance. You can rip away straight away. You can pull the toggle. You can get loose. You can fly your kayak around, and you can sort out the situation. If you're tied onto them, you've got rope in the water. The two of you are tied together. Everything just goes absolutely head over heels, and suddenly you're in a far greater problem than you started off. If you look over here on the far left is what's called a cow's tail. Now the cow's tails are elasticated. If you see the life jacket over here, this is what's known as a towing life jacket. This is the one I use myself at Pam. Very good. They're great buoyancy aids to have. And you can see the little yellow toggle on it. That's the rip away for the cow's tail goes onto the back. There's a carabiner, and that's what clips onto whoever you're towing. A great piece of kit. Like ordinary buoyancy aids are fine, but these are a little bit more expensive. But if you're doing a lot of trucking, I'd highly advise them. So Just going to view. Signal is bad. And everybody seems to see me here anyway. Just going through a few of the questions there now.
No, nothing so far, Paddy. I am watching that.
I'm all good. Right now, give me a shout if there's anything. Okay, planning a trip. Planning is necessity, really. Google Maps, I find, is a great one for inland. If you're doing any riverways that you haven't any experience or you haven't been down before, you can bring yourself down through. You can make out a lot of the channels. You can make out a lot of the obstacles. There's a number of apps then if you're going out onto the marine environment, if you're going out onto the sea. iNavX is a good one that I use. Once again, all depends what you want to spend on them. Like, there's loads of free ones, there's, but it's handy just to have a couple of core base ones. With your trip, no matter where you're going, what you're doing, you're going to have a start point. So you're going to have, right, there's 10 of us going, where are we going to put the cars? I'm bringing the trailer, where can I park the trailer? What way are we getting onto the water? How are we going to get onto the water safely? Am I going to jump off a cliff with my kayak and try and get into the water? Or have I got a nice handy slip that we're just going to all line up and ducky into the water? Your endpoints. Where's our endpoint? What's our goal? Where are we going to? Hazards along the route. Now, multiple different hazards around the place. We have a lot of stuff in Crosshaven. We have boats. We'd have strong tides. We've got strong winds. We've got wind over tide, which makes it extra lumpy. More hazards. There might be, like we had last day. We had thunder and lightning. That's thunder and lightning, and you're sitting there in your lovely plastic boat with an aluminium paddle. It's not a good place to be. So your route, when you plan out your route and where you're going on Google Maps, you're following the channel, you're following the riverway down. You're looking at all the exit points. And by exit points, I mean that if you need to get off the water quickly, let's say, for example, if somebody feels like they're having a heart attack and they need to get off the water quickly, that you've already planned your route and you know that, right, I can get out here, here, and here. And that, let's say you're looking at facilities then. So I suppose our own local one, especially for yourselves, if you're coming down the Onabwee, you're saying, right, I've got Rabbit Island. Okay, I've got Lulu's. I know there's people there. I can get a coffee while I get my bearings, or we can call for an ambulance or something like that, So your weather conditions, the weather forecasting is a huge one. And once we go through weather forecasting in a small bit there, you can use the information that you find in your weather forecasting. You can put that in your own mind over your Google Maps, and you can say if the wind is coming in a certain direction, you can figure out, okay, this is where my sheltered areas are. I know if the wind is coming from the north, I can tuck up underneath the north bank, and the wind isn't going to be howling. I know that if I'm at the south side, if I'm over at the Lulu side, I know that the wind is going to be at its strongest. And I know that if there's anything going wrong, it's going to happen there. Identifying river and tidal channels from the colors on the map. This is a very handy one, and Google is a great one. The satellite imagery on Google is fantastic. You can look it up on your phone as well. You can zoom in. The darker the blue, the deeper the water. Light blue, you can see a lot of the times there now, you can see where it dries out. Let's see now by another 1, 2 seconds there.
Paddy, Ronan had a question there just in relation to weather apps. What's the best apps that you use?
Aha, that brings me along to the next one. 2 seconds there now. We'll just get to that in 2 seconds there. This is just I just took a screenshot there of the Google Maps, just of the channel up above here in Fountainstown. As you can see the mud bank, and you can see the dark blue of the channel, and you can see the mud going all the way up to here. And you can see then where the tidal dam is. You can see the river Manan coming down on the left, and you can see where the dam meets it and the walkway out from the dam. Just very handy. So this brings us on to the weather forecasting. There's a great fella Fred is Eddie English. I'm not sure that any of you know or tune into him, but it's I'll be honest with you, I use him as a cheat sheet really. In the summertime, it saves me looking up the weather forecast. I can tune on Eddie and have my breakfast in the morning. But he has a great video in the morning, and he lets you know what's going on in the harbour and what the winds are and stuff like that. My favorite one of all is Wind Guru. I find it the most effective. I find it the most accurate, and especially with rainfall and stuff like that, I find it great. There's a couple of custom spots. Then we have our own spot down here in Funky Town. We're hoping this year that we're hoping to have a weather station and a webcam for the beach down here, so people can tune in and have a check before they decide to venture down for a surf or go out for a trip or something like that, you know. We just thought it might be quite handy because we get a fair few phone calls. What's it like down there? So there's all different types of weather forecasting and apps out there. There's a couple of them that are live streamed. So the second one here, earth.nullsoft.net. Fantastic one. If you're in a rush and you're going somewhere, I even use it on the way to lifeboat shouts. You can just put it up. I have it as a favorite on my Safari and on the web browser, and you just tap it, and it'll give you a live stream of what's going on. I'll just see there now. Give me 2 seconds. I'll see if I can bring it up. Two seconds there now. I have to speed up the hamster there on the internet. I don't think he's not doing a good job today. No, we go back to it later anyway. Oh. Right. No, I can't seem to get up the internet there while I'm going on that. So that's one of the live ones. You can put into Google anyway, I'll find it just in case I spelt it wrong. I was in a rush to do my homework today. Windy is a great one. A lot of Wind Guru would kind of cut off at maybe 10 o'clock at night. So windy is a great one, and it can give you real-time data as well on where you are. You can drag the cursor around. You can leave it, discover where you are. You know, get onto Google and it can tell you the weather in your current location. Windy is a great one there as well for boats and boating if you're doing passage planning or you're doing an overnight somewhere. Because obviously the weather forecast doesn't stop at 10 o'clock at night, especially if you're doing overnights. One of the big ones, a great one altogether, is Met.ie. It used to be a car crash scenario. Until they redid their website a couple of years back, it was tragic, but now it's fantastic. They have a load of so they have the meteorological charts. They have the sea area forecast. Sea area forecast breaks the country into sections, so it splits it into two, from Ism to Malin, and it'll give you all the weather stations will have their own reports that they'll feed into this as well. So I suppose our nearest one is Roach's Point, and Roach's Point, it's an automatic weather station, so it's going to give you barometric pressure, it's going to give you sunlight, it's going to give you wind direction, speed. What it won't give you is wave heights. So the Met Office, they have a number of marine buoys around the place. I think there was M3 is our nearest one. It's just off the Cork coast. It recorded, I think it was a 10-meter wave there today. Pretty cool. But that'll give you wave heights. It'll give you wave direction, which way the waves are coming in. You can use all of this information then with your planning and your passage planning and where you're going. For those of us with lovely curly hair, we're trying to avoid the rain. The rainfall radar is a great one. Rainfall radar, it will give you, it doesn't give you future readings on the rainfall. What it does is it gives you historical. So it might give you the last two hours of cloud cover, and it'll show you the movement. So when you play the video, you'll see the bank of cloud moving towards where you are for the location you are. And you can tell it, okay, right, we're going to get drenched there now in another half an hour. Tides are hugely important. We'll do a small bit more there on them in a second. Sailing.ie, they have monthly tide charts. So what I do for my boys down here is we print out month by month. We print out all the tide charts for the area. Cove is the one we're looking at as well. Cove is our nearest tide down here. All the tide, there's different tides for different areas around the country. One of the handiest ones, and it's I suppose sometimes overlooked, is the tide book. You can usually get them inside the petrol stations, and they're the handiest thing ever. You can keep it inside in your dry bag as well. A great nice to have. Just when technology fails, it's handy to have an old tide book with you. Tides Near Me, very good app. There's loads of apps as well with it. It all depends. It's potato really. Some of them are nice. They've got nice graphics and stuff like that, and they'll show you they'll show you what's going on with the tide. No, this is a pretty crap graphic. I think, yeah, that's didn't turn out too well. So basically, this is your tidal range here. You'll see on your left, and you can see the curve from low to high. Yeah. Now, what this shows is the dangerous tides, and when tides are at their strongest, is when there's the most volume of water flowing. So whether it's flowing in or out, you can see it's called the rule of 12ths. So let's say low tide in your book is 1 meter and high tide is 4 meters. You know that you've got a 3 meter range of tide. That's your tidal range. So what you do is you divide that tidal range, that 3 meters, you divide it into 12. So every hour, so the first hour of the tide, you see it says 1/12. That means it'll come in, it's got a 12th of its strength coming in. Second hour, 2/12. Third hour, there's 3/12 of tide running. Fourth hour, 3/12. Fifth hour, 2/12, reducing down to 1/12 again. So it's something to get your head into as well, because when you're planning, if you're planning a trip and you know that, okay, my tidal range, you can tell how high the tide is going to be for getting in and out of somewhere. So if you have spring tides, which are larger tides, that's when the moon has a greater influence on the tide. And you have neap tides. Neap tides are when they're a lot smaller. They're slack tides, we call them. So they're like the high tide range here would be kind of a 4.4 would be a big tide here, a big spring tide. Whereas 3.1, 3.2, that'll be low neaps. Obviously, with a lower neap tide, there's less amount of water flowing. You can, where you're getting in and out of the water is going to be determined on how much water there is to put your kayak into. If it's dried out mud, it's, that's why you need to get your timing with your tides right. And that's where the rule of 12ths, it's well worth noting, guys, and just do a little bit of research yourself onto it. Go on to Captain Google and it'll give you loads on the rule of 12ths. And at least then you can dial yourself in your head. You can go, right, okay, I'm 2 hours after full tide. What way is the tide? Okay.
Paddy, just one of the questions there was, that's with the tide coming in. Is it the same? Is the law 12 the same with the tide going out?
Exactly the same. It's just inverted. So any time coming or going, that's why it's the rule of 12. It's a very handy one to tune yourself into. And you'll know if your return leg, and you know if you can wait then for the tide to come in a bit, so that it's more, the higher the tide is, the less current there's going to be, the less drag there's going to be. I suppose one of the main influences with the tide is the wind. Wind plays absolute havoc with the tide. You can have wind running behind the tide, which will increase the speed of the waves, or you can have wind against tide. Wind against tide is what happens is it lumps it up. It's like two waves hitting each other. The wind and the waves, and what it jacks them up so they get very vertical. And it doesn't make for nice paddling really. So I just have up here one of the Wind Guru charts I just pulled from Cork there today. You can see, so they're all different forecast models. There is 2 or 3 of them on this. Generally, they'll give you the most accurate one, and the most and the closest in. It'll go by distance. So here we have knots or wind direction. So you see where the arrow is pointing. That's it. It's actually the opposite. So it's pointing the opposite to where the wind is coming from. So our wind here, let's say if we look at 1 o'clock, 1300 hours on Friday the 21st, you'll see the arrow is down to the bottom right. That means that the wind is coming from the northwest. That's coming from the top left. Okay. The arrow comes from where the wind is coming from. Yeah. Everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so wave height. You can see here, we're just coming off this big swell that came through there now on Thursday. You can see if we look at 1600 hours on Thursday the 20th, you'll see the wind direction. It's southwesterly. So generally the storm systems will come up from the Atlantic and they'll come up from the southwest. Then they'll pass over the country. You'll see them changing into westerly, up to northwesterly, and then they blow through. You can see the wave height there. Everybody can see 6.4 meters. That's probably when they recorded the 10-meter wave there off the buoy on M3, just off the Cork coast. Down below, temperatures, cloud cover. If you can see the cloud cover here, there's 3 different layers of it: high cloud, mid cloud, and low cloud. Low cloud, it's generally going to be bucketing rain on top of you. High cloud, it's just an overcast day. What the numbers here represent, guys, is the percentage of cover. So you have, if we go to Thursday, 2200 hours on Thursday the 20th, you can see that we've got 93% top cover, 83% mid cover, 94% low cover. Means that it's one overcast day. The wind is howling, so it's not going to be raining. Generally not, the wind will be a little bit slower. Wave direction, you can see the wave direction here from the southwest. See the arrow? That just corresponds with the swell that was coming in. Precipitation, everybody understands this is just the rainfall. Wind Guru ratings, this is the 3 stars. If you're kite surfing, windsurfing, anything like that, generally the more stars you get, the more fun you're going to have. And then we can see there's the tides here on below. Very handy. All these down below, you see all the GFS, Wave 9, Aero, 1.3 Zephyr. These are all the different forecast models that they have. They have forecast models for the wind, and then they also have for the tide and for the waves. Hi. Right. Currents and dangerous kayaking areas. I suppose a lot of it comes down to what you're doing, where you're going. Like one of the longest trips that we do, kayaking with the sit-on tops, is about 2 kilometers. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do 100 kilometers on a sit-on top, but what it does mean is they're just not that designed for that. The sea kayaks, the whole reason that the sea kayaks are long and slender is that every kayak has an operating speed. So that once you get that kayak up to speed, it takes minimal effort to keep it at that speed. The sea kayaks they would be more complicated in terms of strokes, rescues, controlling them. But then if you're doing any sort of distance, they cover the ground in twice the speed. Which were like, especially with open sea environments, if you're doing extremely long distances, it's going to take you double the time it would if you were in a sea kayak. You can still do it, but you're going to be a lot more tired at the end of it. And I suppose the danger with that then is that, the old saying, horses for courses. Like the small intermediate trips are fine, but if you're doing anything long, and if you're doing it in the wrong kayaks, then you're going to be very tired, and you're going to, like we always say, try and stack the odds a small bit in your favor. So, try and make sure that if you get to halfway through a trip that you've got plenty left in the tank, like if we were going on a paddle and the wind was on the nose, we'd go into the wind first, and then we turn around and come with it. You never leave the hard work for the end of the session. Simply because you're going to be low on energy, you're going to be low on fuel, you haven't eaten, and you're going to be, your muscles are going to start aching and cramping up in you. So just always, it's well worth noting whatever the distances and the trips you're doing. The deep harbour, like Cork Harbour is one of the most deceptive places that you can be inside in Crosshaven, and you can be paddling away and it's flat calm, and you can go a mile around the corner and you can come around to the rippling tide at Camden, and you can be hitting waves that are 4 or 5 meters high. Like it's because of the depth of the water, because of the Atlantic out there rolling in. There's a lot of unimpeded fetch of water that the sea can pick up. That those waves are rolling unimpeded all the way in. And what happens when they come in from deep water and they hit the shallows, a lot of the waves, they jack up and they get a lot higher, So yeah, deep harbour, more depth. There's a lot more water flowing, like our rule of 12 there that we just touched on a while ago. The deeper the mass of water, like if you're in a riverway, let's say, the fastest moving water is going to be where the deepest water is. So if anyone is ever having trouble and you're caught in a big tide and you can't seem to fight it, move over to the shallows. Move till you're 3 or 4 meters off the bank, and what you'll find is that there's usually natural back eddies. So an eddy is like a back current going up in the shallows. So always a handy one. The depth of water, more water flowing, more hard work. Pinch points. Any narrowing of a channel, any constriction of the water. I suppose we have it here in Fountainstone. We have it at the back. There's a sandbar. And there is, I suppose, it must be 500 meters across here from one side to the other. And then it narrows through a 50 meter gap in the channel. So what happens is when the tide is at its strongest, which is back to your rule of 12ths, which is halfway through the tide, that the volume of water that's trying to actually squeeze through that gap is phenomenal. And you can have a 6 or a 7 knot of a tide there, which is trying to swim against it, near impossible. We've had loads of people die down there over the years. We'd more, there was more pulled out of the water there last year as well. It's even in a kayak it can be quite difficult, but it's once again it's trying to use that small little bit of small bit of knowledge that you've picked up along the way to go, okay, I'm trying to fight the current here and I'm getting absolutely nowhere. What about if I just went over to the bank on the left and tried it there? Just a couple of those small little things, and it'll make the world of difference to you. Phases of the tide, yeah, halfway through the tide, coming or going as strongest. That I can't emphasize that enough, guys, because no matter where you are, if you're out in the middle of the harbour and you decide that I'm gonna tootle away on my sipping top and I'm gonna go over to Ada, I'm gonna have a bite to eat for lunch, and it's halfway through the tide and the wind is against the tide, and then suddenly you're sitting out there going, what's that number 16? Is it on my, oh shit. Yeah, it's just try and avoid all of these scenarios, open ocean, south side of the harbour is open Atlantic. Yeah, long rolling swells, travel large distances in deep water. As they come into the shallows, they mount up, giving breaking waves. Now, one of the big problems that we have, our cave exploration paddle, we go out to the west, out Fountain Bay, which can be lovely and flat and gorgeous, and then we go around Bringabella Point, we go around Fisherman's Point, out at the corner. The minute we get around that corner, the whole environment changes. And you could be sitting here and look out, you could look out from Fountainstone here, and it could be like a pond. And you go, Jesus, where did that come from? So it's called clapitus. It's no laughing at anyone. So what it is it's very similar to the distortion in a speaker. If somebody's they're chatting on the phone and they're on the radio or something, and you get that interference. So what it is it's when the waves hit the cliff, they come back, and one wave is coming in, the waves are coming back off the cliff, and they hit each other and they mount up. So anytime you're around by tall cliffs, and especially a lot of from here all the way down the coast is got tall cliffs, is that you're going to hit places where it's very, very unsteady, like where you're paddling away nice and happy, and then suddenly you're paddling every which way. There's fucking waves coming at you this way, that way, the other way. Always something to just be very, very cautious and very wary of. And the only cure for them usually is just getting yourself a bit of sea room, getting a bit more depth and a bit more back from the cliff. Usually they smooth out, a lot of the difficulties as well would be, or the couple of the cave paddle we do would be going in around the gullies and in around the caves and stuff. It's very, people might think it's a no-brainer, but I'll say it anyway. It's if you're going in around cliffs and stuff and you're going into caves, it's very easy for a wave to sneak up on you. If you're facing into the wave, what we try and do, and we try to get people to do, is if you're going in around caves or anything, spin yourself around 180 degrees and reverse yourself into it. At least if there's a wave coming, you can still have a nice look around for yourself. You can still say hello to the seals. You can, but you're not going to get caught out. You can take a forward stroke if a big wave comes in. I've been in caves of people, and suddenly a wave has come in and we've nearly whacked our head off the ceiling, just because we didn't spot it. But a good one to remember, I suppose another one would be the wildlife. the wildlife outside. Geez, every year it's just it's incredible. It's changing year on year. Like we've like not even 400 or 500 meters off the beach in Fountainstown there a couple of years back, 2 3 years back, we were surrounded by, I think it was about 30 basking sharks, I'd say. Amazing, all around. We got cameras out from one of the lads went in for a swim with them, nearly ended up in his mouth. There's a lot of the wildlife there that the best thing for it is if you kind of hang back, you know, if you crowd in around them, and with kayaks you can always end up in the right place at the wrong time. You know, if there's a big bait ball or something like that, you don't know what's underneath there. Like at Christmas time when all those when the dolphins came in, you know, everybody was out in the, it was completely new. Everyone was out in the water. It's coming up to Christmas time. We were sitting out off Polgurm and a whale. They reckon it was a humpback whale came up and just popped up next to us and back down again. You know, like the wildlife is phenomenal here. There's always like I suppose you'd always have seen in the past, you'd have seen the odd dolphin. The last years, it's just been incredible. There's been pods living here. There's been, you know, there's been hundreds at a time.
Yeah, that was a humpback whale, all right, Paddy.
You caught it on picture, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It was confirmed there by the Irish Whale and Dolphin Group. So yeah, it was definitely a humpback whale. Yeah, I was actually
absolutely amazing.
Paddy, could I just jump in there? Just another question that came up there. In relation to the water, the basic rules of the road. Who has
rules of the road? Fantastic question. Rules of the road. Bigger, like smaller. If you can get out of the way, smaller gives way to bigger. 90% of the time. But motor will give way to sail, and motor, because of the maneuverability, motor has to give way to recreation as well. So like if somebody is flying along, if you're tootling along in your kayak, it's up to the boat to get out of your way. Now, depending on size, some of the boats are constrained by their size and their draft. So if they're big boats, like they're not going to be as maneuverable. A lot of it will be common sense. A lot of it will be, if you're looking at that thing and it's the QE2 and you're going, come on, I love you. You know, it's you need to try and keep yourself out of those sort of scenarios. But likewise, then if you are, let's say you're inside in Crosshaven and there's a boat going to pull up at Hugh Coveney Pier and he's lining himself up and he's turning around and he's coming in, and you decide, I'm smaller, you know, he'll get out of my way, I go inside him. You know, it's a lot of it has to be common sense that you don't put yourself, you try as much as possible not to put yourself in places where there could be harm. I suppose what we're seeing really evident in the last couple of years, more so, is that there is an awful lot of people on the water with very little knowledge. You know, I'm messing in the water my whole life. I love boats. I love anything with engines. My one thing that I cannot stand is the fellas in the jet skis who go out and they start doing donuts. For me, it's the same as being inside in the car park at night time doing donuts to your car. You know, that's grand if you're 17, 18, but out there, especially with the traffic that's going on, you know, I've no problem if it's being used for something, if it's towing a wakeboard, or if it's a rescue ski, or if it's on safety or something like that. They're a fantastic tool. I love them. But in terms of that, you are going to, and I think this year more than anything else is going to see a huge surge in the Dundee boater. You know, and historically they do not have a lot of knowledge or experience or common sense with it. Like we we were sitting here. I'm right on the edge of the water here in the back beach in Fountainstown, and one of my favorite days was we were sitting here, and I'd say there must have been the bones of 60 or 80 people here, and there was one of the old Miami Vice boats. You know, they look like the Starsky and Hutch job there, and fellow with the Ray-Bans on, and they were flying it, and the tide was coming in at the time. We knew there was only a foot of water there. He didn't know there was a foot of water there, and we were all standing there. 5, 4, 3, 2, bang! Off your man goes, Superman into the air. Himself and the poor passenger were launched about 20 meters out of the boat. The whole crowd at the bank just started erupting laughing. It was just, you know, but it comes back to the rules of the road. Rules of the road are great as long as we all speak the same language, but there is going to be yahoos out there, and the best practice is to try and avoid being in the same vicinity, or if you see something dodgy, you know, one thing we're trying to change with the local council and the lifeguards and stuff here is that the sea swimming is massive at the moment. Some of you are probably involved in it. It's great, and people are starting to do, like with the triathlons and the RNLI sea swim, people were starting to do a lot more distance and stuff. So one of the great tracks is from Myrtleville over to Fountainstown. Now, a lot of people are doing that leg and back, but the only problem is that on a sunset, the sun sets in the west. So if I'm coming along in the boat at 30 knots, I can't. It's very hard for me to be able to pick out heads in the water at that speed and with a sunset behind you, you know. And that's if you're watching. That's if you're looking out for people, let alone somebody who's out there on his jet ski or they're out doing a drinking tour around the harbour in a new boat they got for 50 quid, like, you know. So I suppose we're trying to get a swim lane there, but it's the same thing. It's just common sense and trying to minimize the risks as much as possible out there.
Is there any place, Paddy, in our locality here, is there any sort of places that you need permissions? You need permission to actually kayak or paddle or?
Permissions, no. Like there is a problem when you start to go from sea to lakes. From sea into lakes, they have I think it's the invasive species, and there's like a I think it's a fungus or an algae bloom or something. So the only stipulation is that if you are going to the freshwater lakes, that you do wash your kayak down completely before you. I think a lot of the times, and the nature reserves as well, a lot of the times what people do is they go into the petrol station and they get a receipt for a car wash, and they just go and they wash the kayak down. You know, it's just to prevent anything. And the only time you'll really come across it is when you move from salt water to fresh. With the locality around here, no, there's not. Like, the only thing you're ever going to really come across is problems with farmers, and farmers, and especially at the moment, because there's like the amount of people that are rediscovering, you know, what it is to go out for a walk. You know, a lot of people haven't explored their locality, or a lot of people might be new, they might have moved to a place, you know. So the amount of people on the land is gone up hugely. So a lot of the farmers are very panicky about you using their land. The best solution to that, just stay off it, you know. Do your homework, figure out the route, figure out where to get in and out without Farmer Joe pulling a shotgun on you, you know. Like we had trouble up in Manan Bridge. We had trouble a few years back. I didn't know, but a few of my friends, they borrowed a few kayaks and they took off up in Manan, and they said, "Ah, geez, we couldn't be bothered going the whole way down. What we'll do is we'll take the kayaks out at the dam and we'll walk through the field and we'll drive the cars out onto the field and we'll collect the kayaks. So they did that and they walked back the road and they came back and there was, there were the guards were there. The guards were called from the farmer down there. So it's all, you have to be quite conscious about stuff like that as well, you know. But not overly.
Just one last question there. Just come in from Shane there. I suppose it's in two parts. Firstly, it's helmets or not, and then secondly, the life jacket you showed earlier there, on your view on what type of life jackets is good for kayaking.
Helmets. So what will you say with the helmets? Like a lot of the sea kayaking crowd, they don't wear helmets. All the river kayakers, they would wear helmets. I personally don't, unless I'm in an environment that is dodgy. So if I'm out sea kayaking and there's surf there, or I'm in a place that I'm going in and out of caves or rocks or anything like that, then I'll wear one, you know. The downhill brigade, the fellas that do like 30-40 miles an hour in a kayak in 2 feet of water with rocks everywhere, that's when you definitely need your helmet then, and your head screwed on, right? In terms of the buoyancy aids, so does everybody know what the difference between the buoyancy aid and the life jacket is? Oh, probably not.
Absolutely.
I'll see if I can find.
A life jacket will keep you afloat. The buoyancy aid will only help, isn't it?
I think you're Googling that, Derek. We're not going to take that answer.
No. That's the knowledge of it. The life jacket will definitely keep you afloat.
Is he still there? Is he gone?
Oh no, he's just gone to see if he can get it. He's gone to see if he can
Oh, okay. I thought it was gone offline.
Either that or he's gone to check if the lodge is open.
Yeah, we'll join him.
What's the main thing people need to stay alive?
Life jacket.
Life jacket?
Keep it floating in the water. Keep it floating in the water.
We're breathing it.
Air.
Air is the million dollar answer. So with the what a life jacket does, what a buoyancy aid doesn't. Okay. A life jacket, if you're out sailing or something and you get a belt into the head, you get a whack of the boom, you end up inside in the water. If you're wearing a buoyancy aid, the buoyancy aid will keep you floating. That's not going to save your life. You could be floating, you could be unconscious, and your head could be into the water. What a life jacket does, they have the gas canisters and they auto inflate. And what it'll do is when you go into the water, it rotates you around and it keeps your airway pointing up to the sky. These are certain ones. I use them all the time. They're a great job. And what they do is they tell you, I'm sure you can all see clearly. They have a rating. They have a Newton rating. So they inherent point material. And this is a 50 Newton buoyancy aid. Big difference. They're like the rescue one that I showed you a couple of slides back. This palm one is $200. The likes of these, they are maybe 60 to 80 bucks, I'd say. So it's all horses for courses. And the same, if you're out on a rib, if you're out on a sailing boat, then you're going to be using a life jacket instead of a life jacket.
Derek, your microphone is on. I can't.
Yeah.
There's an awful muffle. Sorry now.
Perfect.
Did you hang on, or will I go through it again? All good? Yeah, they went through anyway. Okay. This is the last.
Can you explain the different scoring the wrong word or the different numbering that
point
comes?
shades, is it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
this is just an ordinary point state, and they'll be all around 50 newtons. So the newtons is the what they measure the flotation, how much flotation there is in them. They all need to be sized correctly. So there's no point having a small on a person who's got a large frame. The main thing with them is that when you're putting them on, that all the buckles are very tight, that it's very tight on you. The reason is that if you fall into the water and the buckles are loose, they can slip off. If you're looking at a life jacket, you'll be looking at about 180 to 200 newtons. So they have far more buoyancy in them, but they are more for your OMG. And therefore they'd be more for your recreational boating. How they work is they have a firing mechanism in them, and inside the firing mechanism is like a disprint tablet for all intents and purposes. And when you hit the water, the disprint tablet will dissolve, and there's a trigger that'll fire the gas canister, and that auto inflates. There's an air bladder inside it, and it inflates. The bladder goes up around your neck, and it spins you around and looking up to the heavens. In terms of the main thing, when you're getting one, make sure there's an ISO stamp on them or a CE mark on them. Yeah, the market is flooded at the moment with ones that are coming in from China. There's nothing wrong with the ones coming in from China. Everything comes from China. But what is wrong with them is that there's varying types of them. Ones that have to be at CE mark standard and ISO mark standard, they're a grade above the rest. You know, and always make sure whatever you're getting that they have those stamps on them, you know, because what it means is the company over in China has to spend more money getting their product validated by the EU and putting it through all of these testing procedures to make sure that it is safe as houses. Yeah. I don't see them. They'll also have a size rating on them, so they'll tell you. So it says extra small here now. Person's weight 40 to 60 kilos, 45 newtons up. It'll tell you what you need. It'll say small to medium, up to 112 centimeters across the chest, 50 to 70 kilos in weight, and 60 newtons. So they all have their chart with them, but they're pretty self-explanatory. A lot of the main crowds, CH Marine, they've got a Bantry Bay canoes upstairs. Great selection. They do all the pan gear. Really good kit, and well worth shopping there. And there's a couple of the wetsuit outlet is another really good one. I use that. They've got Helly Hansen gear. Very handy stuff as well.
Okay, I'd say we're probably on to the
last one. This is the last one now from me. So a couple of the local routes. I'll just talk you through a few bits with them. A couple of handy things. So the Milan Bridge to Fountainstown one. It's one of my favorites. When we started here 11 years ago, you couldn't actually get up and down the river. The river was blocked with trees, debris. We spent we spent a good few years clearing it with chainsaws and groups of people, but it's fantastic. It's something that you can pretty much do in any weather scenario. You know, the only one that really upsets it would be if there was a serious gale of westerly wind. It doesn't affect you until you actually come up over the dam, until you get onto the seaside. What we'd also advise is that anytime people are doing the banana paddle, that they time it with the full tide. You can do it at low tide, but you get over the dam, it stinks. You're climbing through mud. You know, it just doesn't make it as enjoyable as it should be.
Paddy, just a quick one there on
Yeah.
the Manan Frankstown. Is there a specific time of the year which is best to do that paddle?
So if you get into the middle of the summer, we have a very big problem, and we're going to be looking for a few buddies for a bit of help with it during the summer. The big problem is the weed there. There's there with the nitrates, and a lot of the ditches and stuff are being cleared from the farming. There's a friend of mine who's involved in the conservation up there, and he does a wilderness and foraging tour there. He'd be very much involved in the land, but the nitrates that are coming off and the fertilizer and stuff, there's a weed bloom that make it, Jesus, for the first 400 or 500 meters of it, it's like kicking treacle. You know, it's trying to paddle your way through it is very, very labor intensive. So we're planning that during the summer this year now that we're going to we'll just get a few people together, and we're going to try and clear a bit of it. Just have something that we could tow behind the kayak, you know, that will snip it at the roots down below. In terms of weather, like in the depths of winter, and when there's a serious rainfall, anytime there's serious rainfall, the height changes drastically there. And the reason the height changes is because of the dam. So if you think about it, the way the dam operates up there, there's 12 tidal floodgates. And the only thing there, basically, they're just a big heavy timber door. Yeah. And it's on the seaward side of the dam. So when the tide comes in, the weight of the water from the sea, it keeps the door flush against it. And the water backs up on the backside towards. It was built in the 60s, the dam was, and it was to stop flooding all the way up to Ballyfeard. But they used to actually bring coal barges all the way up to Manan Bridge. That's the posts you see along the river on the way up. And the track of the river used to be on the opposite side. So it used to be on the Fountain Sound side, not on the Ringabella side. It's obviously like with all farmland, with all, like, if there's a heavy downpour and stuff, it's generally best staying out in the water. You know, you can always, like, Fountain Sound, we've been dealing with it for years here. You know, when they come on and they're saying E. coli beach and all this, like, on the, you know, on the papers, when it was after a rainfall or a big storm or something like that, like, the fundamentals of the principles of physics are still the same. Like, you know, water will still go to the sea. It is still downhill. All of these areas are all valleys. They're surrounded by farmland. The farmers have livestock. They have to put, you know, they have to clean out the tanks to make the grass grow to feed them in the winter time. You know, I've no problem with that, but it's common sense. It's, you know, if you're looking at the river and the river is brown, no. That's a, the sea is brown when you come down to Fountain Sound. No. And usually, and because it's the Atlantic, it's all flushed out in 24 hours. You know, you come back the next day, it's spotless clean. Like, every 6 hours, the tide is going to change. So, in terms of up there, yeah, that's about the only thing. The tide, the bloom, and just watching out for the surge and the rainfall. One more. There's a few more things up there as well. There is like, you can see the amount of fish life up there, anyone who's been there, but there's a phenomenal amount of bird life up there. And the Funky Town swans are up there. Nice ones. we've been building up a relationship with them. There's a mating couple up there for as long as I can remember, 15 years ago more. But we've kind of come to an understanding and an arrangement. So the arrangement is if we encounter them halfway down, it's usually where it gets narrow and stuff, you know, and it's difficult for them to take off. The whole procedure with them is we give them space. Like if you come across the swans when you're coming down, put the brakes on and just mosey. Just cruise away down. Don't encroach on them. The further in on them you get, you'll see he'll start to ruffle his back feather and he'll start to poke the head up and he gets a little bit cranky. You know, I don't know, can a swan break someone's arm, but you know what? I don't want to find out. So what we do is the swans, they paddle along ahead of us, and when the river, they keep going all the way down, and when the river gets wide enough, we hug one bank to the left, they hug the other bank, and we pass each other and salute, and that's all there is. They don't worry us, and we don't worry them. But that's the main thing, guys. If you're going down there with groups, just please respect them, and just don't be picking any fights with them. What else about the dam? The safety in the dam. We've been trying for years. We're getting there in bits and pieces. But we wanted to open up. There used to be a road to Milan. It's a fantastic walkway. A lot more people are starting to use it now, but the safety element in the dam, all the railings are loose. They're all the metal is gone from them. So we're trying to drum up local politicians and all that. And there's a few of them giving us a hand and just seeing if we can get a couple of handrails there at the top. Just if anyone is bringing children, it's very dangerous. There's one side is a 20-foot drop that's wide open, and the other side is on the seaside, you know. When in the summertime, when the beaches are packed here, there's nothing better than shooting off up there for a swim. We like when the tide is fully in, a good spring tide, you can dive off the dam. We often go up there and chill out. For anyone who has boats or anything like that, we'll have the channel marked this year up there. Because we do a sunset paddle and stuff like that. But we're going to bring it back. There's a lovely little island down the bottom of it as well. We're planning on doing a bit of clearing there. We cleared it a number of years back with regard to just people being able to camp there, you know. It is OPW land. The dam was made in the 60s there. So anything before pre-1960s, that was all at the bottom of the sea. So it comes under OPW's remit. So just in case you ever get grumpy farmers down there, usually there I haven't come across any problems down there. What else is there? That's about it.
I was just asking there about your sunset paddle. If you were doing that, is that open for other people to join on?
Yeah, we'll be putting all that up, the schedules. I just finished most of the schedules there yesterday, so all the courses and all that, they're all bookable. The sunset one isn't up yet. It'll be done on the full tide. There's a couple of other things coming as well. We're putting a number of full tide tracks around the place. So there's going to be like an oval paddle track. We're putting one in Carrigaline where you are, one in Crosshaven at the Slob, and one up the back there in Fountainstown. So they'll be all buoyed. So at the full tide, if people want to go, anyone can use them. It's just sort of something nice for people to do and to get a bit of funky fitness without even knowing it.
I'm looking forward to hearing about Novel Cave there now. I've been looking at that one.
Novel is unbelievable. Where's it gone? No, Novel Cove. It's one of the great wonders of the world. It's from I think my favorite side of Novel anyway is if you go out Novel and go east along the cliff face there. It's one time you really need your A game when you're going there. You need it'll be something you know you could do in a big group, but logistics will be an issue. It's down in Novel. Like you get 10, if you got 10 cars there, the place will be packed. You know, trying to actually get out of there. Summertime, there's all people on top of each other. It's if you have a nice handy group of 10 or 12 people or whatever, it is absolutely amazing. But you want to make sure that your weather conditions are right. You want it like a flat, calm, like a pond. Ideally, if you get it with a low tide, a low tide flooding or something like that. What that means then is that you can get in and out and you can see all the different caves and bits and pieces. There's swim through arches. You can hop out of your kayak and you can see the light actually through an underwater arch, and you can swim down and swim through it. And there's just some of the most amazing crystal clear waters. You can, if you're doing that, like it's lovely to do in. We often take a group of 4 or 5 down there and take a paddle around with some to bring some flippers and goggles and stuff like that, But it's the main thing with there is that you don't get caught out with weather changing. If weather changes there, you're on your own. You're like those cliffs are 100 meters high. Like it's a very unforgiving place. It's a stunningly beautiful place, but it's somewhere that you just do your once you do your prep, once you do all your logistics and your prep and stuff, it's not rocket science, guys. It's going out for a paddle, but it's just making sure that you have all those bases covered, and that when you go, people know where you're going. When you come in, you're saying, right, look, I'm going to give you a shout there when we're back in. Signal is very bad here, but I'll be able to. I've 087 there. I've Vodafone. I'll be grand. And the same then, just when you're going there, make sure you're all tooled up with your bits and pieces. So your bivy bags, your first aid kits, your VHFs, your sunscreen, your bit of grub. Have a little picnic there on the rocks as you go around. But in terms of like I've been fortunate enough in my life. I've seen some cool places in the world, but nothing compares to there. It's if you the minute you bring people around, it's just out of this world, and it's hard. People are very quiet when they come back from there. But yeah, the parking is the one, and just making sure you do all your procedures right. Let's see, Caroline Crosshaven. Everybody is very familiar with that anyway. Anyone who's not, I suppose this is the group's first year, isn't it? I suppose a big thing that you're going to face into, guys, and you probably haven't seen it as of yet, is volume of traffic on the water. The volume of traffic is going to increase exponentially from now on. It's like, I think one of the big danger points especially for the kayaking and stuff would be from the yacht club down. So the minute you come to the Knocknaheeny leg of the yacht club, which is on the west side, you're going to come across motorboats. We're talking about the rules of the road there. You're going to be coming across yachts that are constrained by their size, that they're limited in their maneuverability. You're going to come across a lot of kids with the sailing and stuff like that as well, and they're going to be zipping in and out. What I'd advise doing is steer clear. So you like, if you cut on the inside of that track, so if you stay, let's say, on the south side, right next to where the yacht club is, and you like, if you try to go underneath the gangways and the walkways and stuff, like, you can go through one of them, but then if you go to Vitz's and Salve Marine, like there's power cables hanging down, there's all sorts. The best thing to do and the best code of action is avoid it. So by avoid it, I mean go to the Corribini side. When you come down as far as there, shoot over to the Corribini side. There's no traffic, it's shallow water, there's no current, minimizing the chances of anything happening. You can still see all the lovely boats, but you just don't have to be run over by them, you know. Places to get out then as well, like everybody gets stuck sometime in their life anyway. It's always handy to know where facilities are. The yacht club have facilities, there's toilets in there. South Marine have toilets in there. There's toilets in at the lifeboat station as well. Just in case anyone gets caught out on the way down. Usually by the time you've Paddington can sail, you could do with a stop. And just your points to get out then as well. You have halfway down the Crosshaven Road, there's well, obviously you have Rabbit Island. You come down further then, you can get in by Murta's there. There's that's more at the full tide, and then you can shoot down and you can get into you can get out at the yacht club or anything like that. The yacht club is actually a private, a public slip. There was plans before for them to make it private, and they were going to put a big. There was supposed to be another public slipway going on the west side of the yacht club, but it never materialized anyway so far. Yeah, that's the Carrigal line.
Paddy, just a quick question about the yacht club slipway.
Yeah.
Would they have any problems with people getting in and out of there?
Getting in and out of there in terms of kayaking or in terms of boating?
Kayaking.
Kayaking, I'm not 100% sure, being honest. I know in terms of boating you can use the slipway, but in terms of the kayaking, I'm not 100%. I'd imagine ideally they wouldn't like people, like obviously because of the slipway being public and private, the boats can go in there. But in terms of people with kayaking, I don't know. Gray area. You can always ask for forgiveness rather than permission, I suppose.
That's it. Thanks.
Yes.
I think it is a public slipway, but that
It is.
said, I think our boats are way too cheap for them. I don't think they like us down there.
There's a keypad on the gate, but what it is, what the number is, I don't know. I presume if you ring the yacht club, we get a number for it.
Yeah, I look, the lads there, Mark and the lads, they're really helpful. Do you know what I mean? Like they're lovely fellas, they're nice lads, and there's Dave Coveney's down there,
yeah.
Provo's there, and there's loads of, like, if you're in trouble or if there's ever any problem, don't even hesitate. Just pull out there, you know, like in those certain circumstances, they're lovely and they look after you to the end of the earth. But I'd say if it was being rammed every week with people unloading and jumping in kayaks and parking there and all that sort of stuff, then I suppose they might be a bit miffed with it, you know.
Yeah.
I just spotted their briefing at the start of every paddle. Did somebody come up with somebody put that comment in?
Yeah, that was me, Paddy. Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, fantastic idea. Fantastic idea, and it's a great one just to set out the boundaries and to set out what people are doing. To as we said there earlier, just to assess what people's skill levels are. You know, is this your first time? That's fine. Look, I'll run through this with you. The main thing with all of this, guys, is it's not rocket science, you know, and a lot of people would like to portray that it is rocket science. I'm not one of them, you know. I think it's these are skills that can be easily imparted onto other people, and there's always somebody in the group who's got a little bit more knowledge or who's got a little bit more experience in a certain field. You know, there's nobody can put their hands up and say that they're an expert. But I think the trick to it is, and how stuff like this works really well, is that people aren't afraid to listen and people aren't afraid to give advice. You know, I think very important. There's another one. We're opening up a new route this year for paddleboarding in the kayaking. I'm not sure has anyone done any messing around up the Lee, but it's beautiful paddle up there. There's loads of different ways you can get in and out of it. There's up at the Anglers Rest. You can get in all the way up the dam. It's like I suppose it's like the Amazon paddle. It's like the Manan paddle on steroids. It's the best thing about it is the flow of the water. There's not a whole pile of effort has to be done, and you can just sit there taking in the scenery, But a nice one. There's a public car park there just before the Kingsley. You can get out there. There's a crowd up in the city. I haven't really touched upon it, but anyone who has a serious interest in the kayaking and stuff, and in terms of progression wise, there's a club up in the city. They're called Phoenix Kayak Club, and they're one of the most professional outfits that there is. They have some amazing paddlers with them. They have some really top-notch people, and the prerequisite is that you have a level 2 skills certificate from the ICU to join the club there. But then they do a lot of river kayaking, sea kayaking trips, and you can work your way up the grades then as well if you want, But just want to note there, if anyone is looking to push on and wants to push on and get more skills, Has everybody done the Spike Island? There was a lot of you went from Crosshaven the last day, was it? The Spike paddle. I think there was a few.
Yeah.
Someone went from Crosshaven, Paddy, and then the other went from Paddy's Point over to Spike.
Yeah, I think like paddling around Spike is like we spent our whole childhood looking at it, and I just keeps ringing in my ear there for my off. Like, you'll be arrested there now if he set foot in it. Everyone was banned for years, but to actually paddle around it, it's amazing. I suppose the Paddy's Point. Forgive the name, but Paddy's Point is an amazing spot. Like, geez, they spent some money down there. Brand lovely car park, benches, picnic benches, lovely pontoon. You couldn't think I couldn't think of a better, easier way to go and do a nice paddle like that. And I think especially with the group guys, I think I like it'd be lovely for beginners, like beginners going from Crosshaven over to Spike. My opinion, bit too far. Bit too far maybe if people have experience, no problem. But if people are just, if you have a couple of newbies in the group with you at the time, probably better off starting from Paddy's Point. People aren't going to be tired. You could actually enjoy it. You could have a barbecue afterwards in Paddy's Point, and everybody can head away home. The access is great, parking is great. We're going to be running trips from there this summer as well. And the last one, round the great island, the fantastic island, the island of Cove. It's a serious paddle, but it's got to be kind of on the advanced scale. The distance in it. I haven't clocked the distance. I've done the back side of it, but the front side then, it's all the way up to where the old IFI was. I'm sure there's probably a few in the group who have done it, but it goes round by Fota, round the back underneath the bridge. More of a full tide job, but another fantastic one of those ones. It's one of those off the wall jobs.
Yeah, you could go in from White Point as well in Cove, Paddy.
Yeah, absolutely. it'd be another great one that you could just go down to White Point and launch there and leave all the gear and set up back there again, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Derek, do you have a second device sitting beside you there? Because I think one of the two devices are bouncing off each other, and that's what's causing the feedback.
I've only one device. My mic was on it, sir.
Oh, that's probably it. Yeah, that's probably it.
Oh yeah, that's all good.
Just on that, when you mentioned the Lee, I just posted into the chat if anybody interested. There's a link there as well to where you can look at the flow rate for the ESB Hydro. So 70, I fished there a lot, so I know pretty well.
Class.
Yeah, so 70 is full flow when they're generating electricity. 15 and below, normally it goes like 15 is one or two of the gates are open. So depending on the summertime, you'll see it running at 15. When there's no flow on, it'll be down to 3 or 4. And 70 is when they're producing electricity. And that's what we would regard as full flow. And then they have a thing called an overflow, and that's the winter flow, and they can push it to 140. That's typically when down at the Kingsley and stuff is really flooded and the land is really flooded. But 70 would be normal, and that would be like when they're generating electricity, and there will be a nice speed in the river at that stage.
It's gonna be cool. Yeah. That's brilliant. Cheers to that.
No worries. So
I never spotted it. Oh.
If you look at it, it updates kind of on an hourly basis. And the other website, if you haven't seen, is waterlevel.ie. I'll put into the chat as well, because you can put in the different river systems. So like the Onabui, there's one there for Ballyea is the name of the water station, and that's on the second bridge there on the way out of Carrigaline on the way to
I know, yeah,
Goldstone.
the one out past the White Horse.
Yeah, literally under the White Horse, that's it there. And 0.2 to 0.4 are the normal flow rates, and above that you're into flood rates. So you are. I'll put it up there. I'll put the link.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, cheers to that.
Paddy, would you just touch base on the paddle leashes and either being secured into the kayak or not being secured into the kayak? That there's been a couple of people asking and stuff like that. So
about the paddle leashes. I don't. Yeah, they have a place, but I don't really support the use of them. For the simple reason that it's like on a boat having ropes in the water. You know, it's generally never a good idea. If something goes wrong and you've ropes in the water, then you have the risk of ensnarement, tanglement. If you're on rivers, then you have the risk of, you know, there's always a lot of underlying objects and stuff, trees, bits of debris. You know, I just find that if you, yeah, they're handy, but you don't see them used in any great frequency. You know, I'd say I've seen a handful of them, and only recent in the last year or so, I've seen people with them. Like if you were to look at the real purists of the sport, if you were to look at the downhill brigade, we call them, you know, the river kayakers, you'll never see them with one, you know, and you'd ask yourself why then, and you'd say, well, obviously it's a safety concern. And I think, yeah, look, it's the, you know, the trips and the excursions and stuff aren't at that level, but the principle for me still remains the same, you know. I just think it's a little bit, if it was to go wrong, it could go wrong, you know. So my book, I'd eliminate it, you know. For me, it's the same as the bungs in the kayaks, you know. They come with them and they look great, but in terms of practicality, I'd leave them off, you know.
Can I just go back to when I got to your wind guru chat?
Yeah.
The yellow and blue stars, what's the difference between them?
The yellow and the blue stars. The yellow stars means it's game on there for the kite surfers. Blue stars means there's generally nothing. Like it's like it's like a cold, day. It's like hot and cold, you know. If they were red, I suppose it'd be clear, but just that's the yellow one. The yellow ones are mainly for when the conditions are favourable for any of the wind sports, you know.
Perfect.
Guys, I suppose we're coming close enough to the end there. If you want to have a look at those sites, Ty has put up quite a few really good ones there. Jack has put up a couple of ones there, and another couple have put up some there as well. If you want to, before we finish, take a photograph of the hyperlink. Just they seem to be stuff, particularly for the Lee there and for the sort of tide levels and things like that. It's as I suppose as Paddy was saying at the start, the more information you have, the better off. You know, so
that's a great one. I never knew it like this.
It took me ages to find it, but eventually
Wow.
managed to track it down. But yeah, they're really handy.
It's some spot up there.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Really
You spend
is.
a lot of time fishing up there, yeah?
Yeah.
It's
it's
a
good fishing.
bit of a lost land up there, isn't it? It's like
There's
never land.
there's wild deer floating around, and a few of them have actually broken out from far in woods and made them wear down. Like,
Wow. You actually come across them in the Onabui as well. They live across from Rabbit Island. You'd see there was a woman. She rang into the guards that there was I think it came in on a lifeboat shout there for us years ago that there was somebody drowning in the river. Turned out it was a deer.
whoa.
A big stag coming over from one side to the other. And they're living in the woods up there. But it brings you. We were coming back from the pub in Myrtleville late one night 2 years ago, and so we'd all headed away to off to various parties and whatnot. And my sister was one of the last ones coming over, and she said a car pulled in at the side of the road, and he said, "Gonna be careful. There's a deer down there." So she thought, as usual, that she thought this fella might be after a few too many or whatever. So she strolled on anyway. She got down to Fountainstone, right outside the shop there in Fountainstone. And she said, whatever way, she turned around, she looked, and there was this 7 or 8 foot stag with the big giant horns out to the side. All she said she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And she just sauntered on her way. But yeah, there's some mad wildlife around the place. Like
There is.
the amount of otters that are in the river is phenomenal. There's down at the lifeboat station, what they did was they're crafty feckers. Like they hollowed out one of the polystyrene, one of the floats. They hollowed one of them out under the gangway, and they were actually living in it. So the lads who come in fishing, like in the trawlers, and they're cheeky little bastards. Like they'd hop up onto the deck and they'd try to rob fish and all out of the boxes, and they'd hop onto the ribs and everything and start hissing at you. They'd no fear. That was about 5 years ago, I'd say they started colonizing, and they were breeding mad. So I don't know how many litters they have a year, but they seem to be a phenomenal amount of pups. But they spread out into all the bays here. There was one of them had a fight with a dog on the beach in Fountainstone last year. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't believe it.
Whoa.
Dogs came over and tried to have a go, and he bait the dogs up and down the beach.
There's one quick question there, just for kayaking: wetsuits or dry suits?
We're getting into the cha-ching. That's yeah, it depends what you're going to spend. The dry suits, one of our lads Gadget now, he's got some amount of gear. Like he goes out, I'd say what he wears when he goes out is probably about maybe $2,000 worth of kit. Like I'm parched of the old wetsuit because I can get in for a swim. I'm warm blooded, so they're if you really get into it, and if you get into, you know, if you're at the stage where you're buying sea kayaks, or you're buying a riverboat, or you'll find yourself you're going to be buying palm boots, you're going to have all the gear, you're going to have a dry suit, or they have semi-dry suits as well, which would be kind of crossover from the sailing world, and they'd instead of having the true dry suits, I suppose they'd be the typhoons and stuff. We use them in the lifeboat. They have rubber seals, latex seals, and then the crossover ones. Then they'd have neoprene, so they'd have neoprene cuffs, neoprene neck seals. They're great. Like, if you suffer from the cold, luckily I have a bit of padding on me, so I overheat them. So I prefer the wetsuit, and in the summertime as well, you can hop out and you can get yourself refreshed as well while you're at it. But definitely, if you do start doing more, and you start doing a bit of distance, and it's always nicer to be cozy and have your clothes on underneath,
Okay, guys, I suppose unless anyone has another question for Paddy before we finish up, I suppose it's only fair to do a little bit of promotion for him there as well. So, like you all know, lads, Paddy is a local businessman, and he's down in Fountainstown there, and he gave his time to us for free tonight. And anyone who's ever done a course with him will know he's always at the end of the phone for you. So I would strongly advise anyone that's kayaking, at least Paddy can do a level 2 kayaking course with you, or if you don't want to do that, at least do the introduction to kayaks. There, I would strongly recommend that everybody would start and do at least that. And if you were doing it, it's always nice to keep the money local and give it to someone we know. And as I say, he has a shop down as well, and he's selling kayaks down there, and he's selling wetsuits, and he's selling a few accessories. And it's always nice to keep the money in the locality. So, listen, Paddy, thank you so much for.
Thank you. I'll sort out your commission later.
There's a huge.
Thanks, Paddy.
Cheers, guys. Just one last one I read off there, just on the wetsuits. The 543s or the 32s. 543s, that's 5 mil on the legs, 4 mil on the chest, and 3 mil on the arms. So then they'd make it so that they have a little bit more flex in the arms, and then the 3 mil ones are the summer suits. They're lovely and handy. Thanks a million, guys. Cheers for tuning in, and look, you know where we are anyway. If you need anything, just give us a show.
Thanks a million, Paddy.
Thanks, Paddy.
Thanks,
Paddy.
Paddy.
Cheers. Thank you.
Ciao, guys. Good luck. Good luck.